Y'all, I've seen a lot of recipes for Texas sheet cake, and sometimes they're in 13 by 9 inch pans, and sometimes they don't have buttermilk, and sometimes this and sometimes that. But as far as I know, this is the one that I grew up on, and this is as authentic as it gets. The reason that it's baked in a cookie sheet with high sides is so that the cake doesn't get more than about an inch or an inch and a half thick. That keeps the texture correct. It's chewy, somewhat like a brownie, somewhat like a cake. It's imperative that it's really thin and not a thick cake-like thing. By the time you get everything else on there, you'll see why. So what we're gonna need is powdered sugar, butter, all-purpose flour, regular sugar, pecans, cocoa, and I use extra dark cocoa because it gives it more of a dark chocolate flavor that I like, but you can use regular cocoa if you want. Vanilla, baking soda, eggs, if I didn't say them, buttermilk, and water. And that is it. Okay, the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna melt the butter, and I'm going to melt it until it becomes a golden brown color. That's one of the reasons that I'm using a light colored pan, because it makes it a lot easier to see the color of the butter. Browning the butter before we add it to the cake is going to add an extra richness and depth of flavor to it. Browning butter gives it a nutty, I don't even know how to explain it. It gives it a unique flavor that's just so delicious, and it works so well in this cake. Browned, and you can see towards the end you really have to watch it carefully, but you want it to be that really pretty golden brown color that you can see underneath the foam. Once that happens, we're going to add our cocoa powder, and the water. And we're going to bring that to a boil. And you want to keep stirring it while you're bringing it to a boil, because you don't want anything to be stuck on the bottom and you don't want anything to burn. Once it comes to a full boil, you're going to turn off the heat and just let it sit. This is such an easy cake. You don't even need a mixer for it. So in a large bowl, we're going to add the flour, the sugar, and the baking soda. And the recipe calls for salt, but I'm using salted butter, so I'm not going to add salt, but the salt would go in here if you're using it. And we're just going to stir that up and get it all mixed up good. Put that aside. In this bowl, we're going to crack the eggs. Why is it that when I'm talking to y'all, I invariably get shells in there? You know that if you get shells in eggs, you can pull them out with the eggshell. I don't know why it works, but it's almost like a magnet. It's so weird to watch. And we want to beat the eggs up so that they're all mixed up ahead of time. Since we're not using a mixer, you don't want any like streaks of egg white. Okay, and then I'm going to mix in the vanilla and the buttermilk, and mix that up good. Now I'm going to add the egg mixture to the flour mixture, and we know that that's not going to be nearly enough liquid, but remember, we've got the hot cocoa mixture on the stove. decided to put the cocoa mixture in a cup measure just to make it easier. And we're just going to pour that right in, a little at a time. Smells so good already. I don't know why I'm always so messy. Always have been. My mom wouldn't let me cook in the kitchen. I literally didn't learn to cook until I was an adult and married and had my own kitchen to mess up. Once that's stirred up real well, I'm gonna set it aside for just a minute while I clean up my mess, and I'll be back. Y'all, don't ever let your kids put your good cookie sheets in the dishwasher, because that's what they're gonna end up looking like. So I've sprayed the cookie sheet down with no stick spray, and I'm just going to pour this, give it a good stir one more time, and I'm just going to pour this right in there. The oven is preheated to 350 degrees, and you can see this is not going to be a thick cake. That's the whole point. It's a rich cake. It's delicious. It's like some kind of crazy combination between chocolate cake and brownie and fudge and everything good. But it is not a thick cake. And you don't want it to be. I do have a recipe for a regular sheet cake on the blog if you're looking for a sheet cake. But this is not it. I want to get all of the chocolate out of there because I don't want to waste one drop. Well, maybe I'll waste a drop. And then I'm going to give the pan a little shake to even it out. And this is going to go in the oven for about 20 minutes. Okay, I'll see you back here then. 5 to 10 minutes before the cake is done, we're going to make the icing. And because the hot icing needs to go on the hot cake to get the right texture, okay? So what we're going to do, I've cut the butter up this time to make it a little quicker, and we're going to go ahead and brown the butter and then continue on with the icing. So I'm going to get this started, and I will be right back. All right, our butter is just starting to brown, and once it gets to this point, it goes very quickly, so pay attention. We're going to put in our cocoa. And this time we're going to put in buttermilk instead of water. And we're just going to let that come to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, we're going to turn off the heat and add the confectioner sugar, or powdered sugar, whatever you call it. And remember, I do have this off the heat. The stove is turned off. And you just keep mixing that until it smooths out, and it will. The lumps of, I probably should have sifted it. A lot of times I don't like to take time to do that, but the confectioner sugar will melt in. Basically what you're making here is a fudge. See how rich and gooey that is? So good. Now we're going to add the vanilla. And the pecans. And that, y'all, is the topping for our cake. Now, when this, when it cools, it's literally going to be like fudge candy. And this is why you have to get the warm topping on the warm cake, because once it cools, it's almost impossible to spread. Okay, y'all, cake is coming out of the oven. You can see how thin it is, how rich and dark it looks. Also, it looks like my house is tilted again. We live in an old house, so depending on the time of year, it may tilt this way, it may tilt this way, so I almost never get an even topped cake. Okay, y'all, once you've got the hot cake and the hot topping, then you're just going to pour this right onto the cake and spread it as you pour. It's a little harder to do when you're trying to run video at the same time, but you get the idea. And as it cools, it's going to be harder to spread properly. So try not to give it any time to cool. And then we're just going to even it out. And you need to do this gently because as you pull the topping, it will lift off the cake and it will tear the cake apart as it cools. So this is an easy cake to make, but you have to work quickly once you get to this point. I'm having a little trouble getting this all the way in the edges. There we go. Look at that. Is that not gorgeous? All right, so we're gonna let that cool for a little bit and then we'll come back for the big taste, okay? See you then. Okay, y'all, this is ready to cut into and enjoy. Look how, this is such a huge cake. It's so good for potlucks because you can get at least 24 pieces, probably 36 pieces. It's super rich. Even I, with my very experienced sweet tooth, can't eat a lot of it, okay? And one of the things that you're gonna want is a cup of coffee or a cold glass of milk. It is such a chocolatey rich cake. But let's cut into it. Look how gooey the topping is. It's literally just like fudge candy. Now y'all remember, the first piece is always a throwaway piece, right? You can see that this cake is not thick. It is not a thick cake. It's not meant to be a thick cake. What it is chocolatey and gooey and delicious. Well, y'all, this cake, look how huge it is. It's giant and it is so rich and so chocolatey and so good. Everybody's gonna love it. It's perfect for potlucks because it makes a whole lot. 4th of July parties, just whatever. Any kind of picnic. This thing is amazing. So I hope you'll try it and I hope you'll like it. I'm sure you will. If you like chocolate, you're gonna love this. And it's so easy to make, and the oven's only got to be on for about 20 minutes, so it's not going to totally heat up the kitchen. Just super easy, super good, and yeah, you got to try it, okay? All right, that's it for me. I am going to head out of here. I hope you have a great week. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Love y'all, and I'll see y'all next week, okay? Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see y'all. Bye-bye. Love you.